Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Backyard Professor live video podcasts. I have Dan Vogel in the house. So we have a phenomenal subject to get on with. Let's get this show on the road. All right. Hey, thank you all for coming out tonight. I have Dan Vogel with me. We are going to discuss Richard Nixon's resignation. We have decided to cancel the show for what we wanted to do it with. What do you think, Dan? Shall we talk about Nixon tonight, or shall we give our audience what they want?
Tricky Dick.
Hey, we could flip a coin. We could do the magic and let fate decide. Hey, there you go. In fact, I've got a coin right here. I'm not
You
even
can ask the rod.
My lucky penny. You call it, I'll flip it. Heads, we talk Nixon. Tails, we talk Smith. Call it.
Tails.
Heads, you lose. We're talking about Smith. I hope you came prepared.
All right.
Oh, good. Yes, I have Dan Vogel here, you guys. And we are having so much fun behind the scenes, we decided we'd come on and have some fun with all of our audience here. Tonight is really a spectacular night. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of this or not, but it is October 30th. And Dan, do you know of anything significant that happens on October 30th? Because I sure don't, other than our show tonight. Did anything significant in Joseph Smith's history happen on October 30th that you can think of?
Probably.
Probably. I'm sure he, oh, hey, earlier today in my Sunday school, I noticed a reference where Joseph Smith drinking a beer was taken out of the historical record. So he might have drank a beer on October 30th. We could go with that and call it good. The things you learn in history. Yeah. So, you've had a very busy week. You have put together quite the show here. Quite the amount of information. What are we going to cover? Why don't you get us off the ground here and take us up into the air?
Well, we're going to do a recap again like I did last time.
Awesome.
Just to prove that I read these comments.
Thanks,
everybody. Thanks, everybody, for your comments.
Yeah, be careful what you say. Vogel's reading you, man.
So I'm mostly going to focus on Cheryl and Nick. Cheryl and Nick's comments.
Okay.
So Cheryl says,
I'm not sure if I see either one of them in here yet. Hopefully they'll show up tonight.
I haven't seen them.
I need to contact her too. So,
okay, here we go. Cheryl says, did you not read in the book how we say that Joseph Smith did draw on many things, but in this book we happen to be focusing on Masonry? Doesn't mean we have a meta narrative.
And that was Cheryl?
That's Cheryl.
I think I remember that. Oh, yeah, Cheryl is here again. Hi, Cheryl.
I need a drink already. So,
okay, have a drink. We got him some hardcore iced tea here. We're going to get fast and loose here. Hello, Debbie Joe. Oh, hey, I got to say hi to everybody real quick. Hold
Go
on.
ahead.
This is my routine, man. You can put your thoughts together while I'm talking. Cheryl Bruno, we're honored. Thank you, dear. We're honored to have all of you ladies, Patty Cake and Debbie Joe. Tom Miller, you're not a lady, but we're grateful you're here. Gail Caps, and I'm going to miss somebody and they're going to yell their heads off at me. I apologize. Mark Crispin, I'm just going on who I see right here, right now. So, where's the button to, there it is. Oh, I can't push up the comments. Holy cow, what a rookie I am. Hey, I just got this thing barely working. We're going to have slides tonight. So anyway, welcome all of you for being here. I love all you guys. I always see you every day. And yes, Debbie Joe, I saw your comment about my video I made this morning with your son, the film expert. Thank him. Thank you. Tell him thank you kindly. Boy, I got to spit it out. So yeah, I'm picking up the skill here, and Dan has been helping me. Dan produced these slides, and they are just perfect. They are so good. So you guys are going to get some really good. Oh yes, and Doug Vincent, buddy, thank you for coming on. Okay, and Ruby, happy Halloween Eve. That's what it is, Dan. I forgot it's Halloween Eve. I knew there was something significant about tonight, on a Sunday no less. Oh, good luck with your surgery, Debbie Joe. 12:15 tomorrow. Prayers coming your way. Splunky Don Cole, thank you for coming on, buddy. Good to see you again. Look at Tom Miller's comment, Dan. I love it. Joseph Smith rocks in a hat. Oh no, Patty Cake. We are both going to descend in loud laughter, so you can too. Hey, see Mother of Pearl, welcome here. It's Double Eve. Hey, John Rosbarski, hello. Okay, I've said hi to all you awesome people. It is time for me to shut up and let Dan take over, and then I will interrupt him as I can. Okay, now we're official, Dan. Okay, take off, pal.
All right.
No, I don't mean take off. I mean, let's go sailing. You stick around. And, yeah, boy, you got to watch what you say sometimes. Okay,
Cheryl's here now, so I'll be responding to some of her comments and some of Nick's. So,
and Cheryl, we're going to have you on the show again soon, just so you're aware of it. If you're up to that, I haven't had a chance to call you yet, but you're in the queue, so to speak. So, okay, Dan, give us your.
Cheryl, as you recall, Cheryl said that they wrote about Joseph Smith being influenced by many sources, not just Masonry, but they were just focusing on Masonry. Doesn't mean we have a meta narrative.
Okay.
And I answer yes, but according to this book, Joseph Smith didn't simply draw on Masonry as one among many influences. He was a pro-Masonic restorer from the beginning. That's a meta-narrative running through his entire life, involving everything he did, including the first vision coming forth through the Book of Mormon, his death, etc., etc. It wasn't just an influence, it was a major goal, according to this book. Cheryl says, of course, so when you point out there is coincidence, and that is interesting, it doesn't mean you're jumping into myth making. My answer is, when you assign meaning to coincidence, synchronicity, providence, you are myth making. You're not doing history anymore. Nick says, oh my God, this is hilarious. Now Dan Vogel is the expert on Jungian psychology too. You know, unlike someone who holds a PhD in Jungian psychology and actually understands Jung's oeuvre. It's not a contest for who knows the most. Instead of issuing ad hominem, I think we would rather hear your thoughts or defense of Jungian synchronicity. As it is, we have no idea what you think about the subject. Is it a legitimate historical methodology, Nick? Tell us. Nick also says we don't draw on Forsberg's book because it was a terrible mess, which I agree with. Feel free to see my published review from when Forsberg's book came out. I think you mean the one published in Farm's Review. I'm not a big fan of Forsberg's book either. Still, what I'm talking about is where he used the distinction of pure and spurious masonry, just like you, to explain away the Book of Mormon's being anti-Masonic, as well as finding what he thought was pro-Masonic passages. I think that would have been worth mentioning somewhere.
Okay.
Nick says, nope, we never ever claim that the words Vogel is referring to were the grand key word referring to Freemasonry or by Joseph Smith. So this is that missing, Joseph Smith was supposed to be the great restorer, and where's this restoring of the missing word? Joseph Smith specific, okay, this is in part one, Nick had said, Joseph Smith specifically claimed to have restored the lost word. Pity Dan couldn't read clearly enough when we specifically wrote about the meeting in which Joseph Smith made that proclamation. So I looked up and I found the meeting on the page 317 of their book. And that was, we'll reread that out of Clayton's journal.
Page 317, Dan.
Yeah, this is what I believe Nick was trying to refer me to.
Page 317, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we read it last time too.
Okay.
Joseph Smith spoke concerning key words. The grand key word was the first word Adam spoke and is a word of supplication. He found the word by the Urim and Thummim. It is that key word to which the heavens is opened. Okay. Okay. So there we are.
Okay.
And Nick is the one that said it was in the meeting. This is the meeting. And so I was directed to it by him. And so I repeat it. And then, nope, he says they never ever claimed that was the key word, the one given in Adam's prayer. Well, it's true. On page 346, refers to the marrow to the bone given in the 5 points, which is supposed to be a substitute for the key word. So the name is lost. So because both instances are talking about different key words, it's difficult to argue that Joseph Smith said he restored the word in this meeting, not being the Adam's prayer, and then give it the other word at the 5 points. You can't use both of those things to say he gave it and then he lost it. There's no evidence for that, which makes their meta-narrative pointless because the word is never restored, this long lost word, and his whole mission was to restore this Masonic word. What happened? So that kind of makes the meta-narrative a little pointless exercise, if that's what happened, but I don't think that's what happened. Nick says, but remember, folks, Dan Vogel is the real expert on Freemasonry. I never said any such thing. Okay. It's not about being an expert on Masonry. There are other things involved dealing with Mormon origins and historical methodology that needs to be taken into consideration here also. How the Freemasonry expertise on Freemasonry is being used, just the same as John Gee's expertise on Egyptology. How does that interface with Mormon history? And it doesn't always, people that are experts in one subject don't always connect that subject well with Mormonism. So that's the issue. It's not a contest.
Cheryl
says,
has a comment. She said, not
okay.
page 317 or 346. It's a Masonic meeting where Joseph Smith bursts in and says, I have done what King Solomon,
Yeah,
Hiram, and Hiram Biff could not do.
yeah, establish the kingdom.
Okay, so you're reading that as establish a kingdom rather than restoring the lost word. And they're
I have set up, he goes on to say on the previous page to where they quote that meeting where he says about the key words. He bursts into the thing and he says, I've done what Solomon, King Hiram, and Hiram Abiff could not do. I have set up a kingdom, no more to be thrown down forever, nor never to be given to another people.
Well, I suppose the supposition is that he couldn't have possibly set up that kingdom that couldn't be thrown down without the restoration of that word. I'm just throwing, now this is my
Yeah, okay, well, that's
way I would, I don't know, I can't remember what page you're on. I can't remember how they put, I'm not
this
trying
is
to
316. Okay, this is on page 316.
216. Okay.
316.
316. That's what I said. You got to listen to what I say, not what I mean.
Okay. so at the bottom.
Okay, here we go. Okay.
Dimmock B. Huntington. And then it goes to Joseph Smith continued. So he came into to this meeting, yes, and he says, "I have done what King Solomon, King Hiram, and King Hiram Abiff could not do. I have set up the kingdom."
Okay. Yeah.
Where's this word? Restored word. What does that have to do with anything?
Well, it might be the power to help them restore the kingdom.
So we have a major confusion going on here with a major part of their thesis.
So your main complaint is they're not clear on the restoring.
We're still not clear, and this is the third go.
Okay. I see. I see your. I wanted to make sure I understood your stance. I'm with you.
So it's a problem that needs to maybe be worked out. You know, where is this restoration of the key word? Okay. Inquiring minds want to know.
Okay. Well, I'm sure knowing Cheryl and Nick, they will deliver.
Okay, good.
I'm going to make sure they do it on this show if that's at all possible. So we want you happy, Dan Vogel.
I'm just doing a book review.
Yes.
Okay.
Idea. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Nick says the spellings of Hiram, the two different spellings of Hiram, are all over the place at that point, as we discussed. Yes, they discussed the spellings, but they did not mention the possibility that Hiram's changed his spelling because of a change in attitude.
How do you determine they had a change of attitude, though?
Well, it's just a possibility that the spelling of the name was not to have the Hiram Abiff or Hiram King Hiram or Hiram Abiff's spelling, have a different spelling, because maybe there was a change of attitude, which there's other evidence that points to that conclusion also that I'll get to in a minute.
Right.
So then Nick says, Dan, didn't you claim certainty that it was a different Joseph Smith Sr. back in the early Mormon documents days? So we're talking about the record, the Masonic returns or the Masonic dues record from the Canandaigua, Ontario Lodge, mentioning a Joseph Smith, and they state without any qualification that it's Joseph Smith Sr. And he's saying that, did I not say that it was with certainty it was a different Joseph Smith back in the early Mormon documents days? Because I mentioned it in my introduction to the Hiram Smith listing in the Mount Moriah Lodge, 1827 to 28 records. So,
So did you do that with too much certainty, do you think? Is that what he's asking?
no, the answer is no. I said
Okay.
it was unlikely to be our Joseph Smith Sr. based on the residency in Canandaigua, which the record states ad hominem this is actually an ad hominem circumstantial argument, because he's trying to say, well, you're contradicting yourself, so you have no right to criticize us. Still, the
Okay.
the
Well, I
method of
don't take
infinite.
any of this as criticism so much as just as an analysis. Like you're saying, a book review, what we want to do is it's good to get everybody's interpretation, where the weaknesses are, where the strengths are. It is their first book, so there's bound to be some weaknesses. We're looking very forward to seeing the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th books these guys produce, so on and so forth, you know. Hey, I love to read, and if they love to write, you got a reader.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I don't see this as a fight so much as a review / discussion.
Yeah.
Just so you know, that's my view. So anybody else is welcome to have a different view. So anyway, yeah. So keep going. What's the next point, young man?
So I'm saying, in regard to the Joseph Smith Sr. Record, I believe the method infinite overstates the evidence for Joseph Smith Sr. as a member of the Canandaigua Lodge. So Nick says, yes, they did ditto on every member in that page. So it just says ditto, 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 ditto. This is okay. This is where I take it out, and we'll look at it. So yeah, let's see if we can get this. See all those ditto marks for residents. Joseph Smith, resident.
And your red arrow there is going
ditto,
to
ditto, yeah, to Joseph Smith, to a Joseph Smith. Ditto, 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 ditto. Okay, for residents. But look over here. Look how careful he's being with the ditto marks. It's kind of blurry, but there we go. If you hold it still long enough,
right?
Initiated, you see other ditto marks underneath the past for dates, and it looks like he's being the secretary or whatever, treasurer, whoever was making this, is being careful in the other places. But so it's just I did bring up the gap of 2 years. People are moving around. And there's still 1 out of 9 chance.
Okay, so I've got a comment from Cheryl, then another one I want to put up. I just want to make sure you see this. So she's saying all of the men on the record were marked as coming from Canandaigua, even though it can be shown that several of them lived in different towns. And
a couple of them they showed.
Okay, and she says we also don't say that Joseph Smith Sr. was definitely a member of that lodge, but that it was likely. So she's saying they aren't being really truly they're trying to go with the best foot forward on the evidence, but it appears to me like she says dealing in probability and not certainty also. I mean, all of us are, no matter what subject we're studying, realistically. So
yeah, we all do possibilities. You have to fill in some gaps. There are always going to be gaps. The records are never complete, but it's how close the dots are that you're trying to connect. Right. Some dots are way too far away to even attempt. But this is on page 34. They state, a search of Mount Moriah Lodge's records has not revealed the induction of Joseph Smith Sr., but he does appear on the records of the Ontario Lodge 23.
Okay.
no qualification, no possibly, no nothing. Okay, although they do eventually mention that there are 9. They mentioned my early Mormon documents had mentioned that there were 9, and
Uh-huh.
that in the 1820 census, there's no Joseph Smith living in Canandaigua, so that he obviously moved away if that is a residence. Okay, but then they show whoever is closer is likely our Joseph Smith. So it moves from a certain statement, then it treats the evidence in somewhat responsible way, although they got the mileage a little off in their chart. Here's their chart. We also got, they say the amount, here's the chart, right? Where are we? There's the chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember?
That's the chart. You've colored up your book as bad as I have, Dan.
It's the corrected mileage, but yeah, Mount Moriah Lodge 123 should be.
Here we are. Here, my chart's clearer than your chart.
Yeah.
We're having a chart contest here.
So they do eventually get around to it, where you see that there's a possibility it could be somebody else, but still they make the argument that the one that's closest is probably our Joseph Smith. Then the evidence for Joseph Smith Sr. joining Masonry is weak. Okay. Still, he's still known to be abusing alcohol. I mean, it's notorious. All the neighbors talk about his drinking.
This is similar, right?
It's more probable, if we're talking about probabilities, that he did not. We don't have a record of a certain record. And the record that we do have is so weak that you can't say with any certainty that it's our Joseph Smith, and more likely it's not, because it's too far away. You have the Mount Moriah Lodge right there, and there's no reason he would not attend the Mount Moriah Lodge. I mean, if it's good enough for Hiram, it's good enough for his father. So, and if Joseph Smith Sr. did join the Mount Moriah Lodge, it would have been in that same gap where Hiram was theorized to be, or probably was initiated during the gap, in the early 1820s. Anyway, so that's the state of the evidence. So then Nick says Hiram was specifically initiated, was in the Mount Moriah Lodge, meaning Palmyra. Cheryl says in Nauvoo Lodge records, Hiram gave his home lodge as Mount Moriah Lodge, not Hogan. This was actual lodge records, and I mentioned Hogan because he published the lodge minutes and discussed Hiram's membership. That's why I mentioned Hogan. My point was that Hiram joined in the early 1820s gap and then stopped. He's not mentioned in any of the records until 1827, 1828 record, and then stopped again. This Hiram Smith may not be our Hiram Smith. So he may have joined in the early 1820s, but there's no guarantee that Hiram, who paid his dues in 1827-28, is the same Hiram. There are other Smiths listed in that same record, and there's a possibility that the Hiram listed there is a member of those families, or would that probably one family of Smith.
I think the problem here is there's just too many Smiths in the history. What we need to do is ask the Mormon leadership to clean up the historical records and make sure there's only one Joseph Smith. I'm being sarcastic. Sorry, I can't help it.
Yeah.
That's what they're best at, is cleaning up the record, you know.
Yeah. So Cheryl wants to say that they discussed why Joseph Joseph Smith Sr. joined a lodge, the Canandaigua Lodge. One was because they had more, they were better, more established. And the Palmyra Lodge has been around since 1804. I mean, if it hasn't been established, you know, from 1804 to 1817.
Okay, just so you know, Hiram Smith's membership, Cheryl says, is not in question at
I didn't. So you're missing the point, Cheryl.
Okay, I just want to
The point is that I'm not questioning his membership. I know he was a member of the Mount Moriah Lodge, and he joined in the early 1820s. But the Hiram mentioned in the 1827-28 record is not necessarily the same Hiram, which leaves open the possibility that Hiram changed his attitude. So if he joined in early 1820s, why wasn't he attending all these other years? He was maybe a lukewarm Mason at best, and the possibility that the other Hiram Smith is from another Smith family leaves open the possibility he never came back. So where's this great Masonic family that they're trying to portray? That's the point.
Okay, and then atheist apostate, not trying to put you on the hot seat. I'm just letting you know the crowd is really enjoying this conversation.
What's evidence for that? What is that? I don't understand.
What is that, atheist apostate? Clarify that for us, yes. I would be interested in seeing that too.
I just explained. Oh, it's a different Hiram Smith? There's a Hiram Smith listed there before and after. So there's a possibility that the other Hiram Smith.
So why would he come back to Nauvoo?
A change of attitude, just the same as Joe Smith being an anti-Mason in one early part of his life.
Aren't we reading that into the record, though?
Could you be what?
His change of attitude. How do you know he changed his attitude?
Because the Book of Mormon's anti-Masonic by the best interpretation of the evidence.
Okay,
then he joined. It's the same thing as he was probably anti-Jackson as well in the Book of Mormon. And as soon as he gets to Ohio, because most of the anti-Mormons are anti-Jacksons, they had to, or Whigs, they joined the Democratic Party because that was advantageous to them, even though they supported Jackson in the 1832 election. So political, you can change, you compromise in political situations depending on your needs. So, and we have many.
Another one at you. I'm going to throw another one at you.
Go ahead, read it.
Dan would have Hiram join the lodge, then leave the lodge, then come back again.
Yeah, why not?
Isn't that in line with the narrative?
Hiram was caught up in the anti-Masonry of the time. I'm not the one wrestling the evidence. Everyone at the time, and even now, all the scholars agree that it's the Book of Mormon's anti-Masonic. Only the authors of this book and Clyde Forsberg believes that it's pro-Mason and it's only attacking spurious Masonry. That's wrestling the evidence to prove the point. It's easier. Occam's razor, like I mentioned last time, will show that Joe Smith contradicted himself. There's nothing wrong with contradicting himself. That's when I talked about the idealist fallacy, that's people that can't allow for contradiction to exist. They have to harmonize. That there has to be a rational consistency in a person's life, and humans are not consistently rational. But the assumption that humans are consistently rational and that they wouldn't contradict themselves, and using just this contradiction to avoid the contradiction commits this idealist fallacy.
Okay.
So, yeah, Joseph Smith contradicted himself on, eternal salvation, on, marriage,
Okay.
name of the church has to be after Christ, and he changed it to Latter-day Saints.
But he's not as bad as Russell M. Nelson is right now. So I'm just saying. So there's Cheryl's new comment. You're holding so tightly on to the idea that the Book of Mormon is anti-Masonic that you can't see the other side.
What
I
other
mean,
side?
I'm not trying to have an argument here or anything.
Yeah.
I'm letting you, I'm going to have Cheryl on so that she can present her full case, and then
Yes.
you can be in the
I'll be
chat.
there listening.
Awesome. That's what we're hoping. This is what we love, is to have all sides present their ideas.
Yes,
So anyway,
exactly.
all right. Okay.
Okay, so now we'll move on a little bit and let her have her opinion about my motives.
Well, she's got another thing I'm going to let her have too. So, so that's two of
but
them.
my point, Nick says, considering Joseph Smith Sr. died before Nauvoo Lodge established, why would they talk about his initiation at that time? So I mentioned that we didn't have a similar situation like we have with Hiram. So the point is that we don't have that added information. If we didn't have the Nauvoo Lodge, would we really know Hiram was a Mason, in the Mount Moriah Lodge, just by that one mention of Hiram? And we know that there's at least two Hirams, so we'd be in the same situation. We would be in the same situation with Hiram as we are with this Joseph Smith mentioned in the Canandaigua record.
Okay.
Except we would have one out of two, maybe,
Right.
Nick says, notice how Vogel transforms clearly labeled possibilities into definitive claims so he can then ridicule. My point is not to ridicule, okay? And if he hears it that way, if he hears it as a ridicule, he won't be open to criticism. So this refers to the Elder G. Smith referring to Smith family tradition, speculation that Alvin's lap desk contained architectural tools, and speculation in Method Infinite that instead it could have contained the implements of masonry like a compass, square, level, mallet, etc. Everyone gets that it's a speculation. Okay, I didn't question. I know it's a speculation. My point was that it was unnecessary and wild speculation, beyond reasonable, trying to make Smiths as much Masonic as possible. So they're trying to create this Masonic Smith family, that they're totally immersed in it, and, to carry their meta narrative through the Book of Mormon. And on beyond. So sometimes the dots are too far. The next comment, Cheryl's comment, is similar. Ridicules Eldred Smith's claim that the plates fit in the box, but the authors do not claim this at all. I never said the authors claimed the plates were in the box, but Eldred G. Smith claimed it. So Method Infinite builds the argument about Masonic implements on family tradition, which isn't reliable. That's why I mentioned the plate. The plate story comes from the same family tradition, and we know that plates cannot fit into the box. So you're relying on Eldred G. Smith's either it could be a speculation on his part or family tradition. Let's say it's family tradition. It has the same validity as the plates in the box. And then you build on that some speculation that, it's really Masonic implements. That's just like going a little too far with speculation. The dots are too far apart. So that's why I mentioned it, was the eagerness that the authors have of gathering what they think is evidence for their thesis.
Okay, just so you know, then that ties in Cheryl's last comment. If we didn't have the Nauvoo Lodge, we would not know about Hiram, but we do have the Nauvoo Lodge record. So,
yes,
you're saying we do have that evidence.
It sounds like she's just not getting it.
Well, she's letting you know that your speculation that if we didn't have it, we wouldn't know is beat by this evidence. I think that's.
And I'm trying to show how weak the evidence is for Joseph Smith Sr. and that we only, if we didn't have that record, see, this is hypothetical, so she can get my point.
Okay.
And the point is that if we didn't have the Hiram Smith record, we would be in the same situation as we are with just
Joseph Smith
Sr. in Canandaigua.
Okay.
And if we had a record for a Nauvoo Lodge record for Joseph Smith Sr., we would be on maybe more sure ground. But still, I would still look to the Mount Moriah Lodge in the gap of the record where Hiram is supposed to be. That's where I would look.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But still, I want people to understand the state of evidence that we have, because I believe it's being overstated. It gets quite certain with some people out there on the internet, especially. So I point out the weakness, and so that maybe we can all keep this in mind and learn more about.
Debbie Joe has a great comment too. She says, "Gail, I cried after my master's thesis defense. Everyone was so critical, even though I passed. Then I realized that this is what historians do. They criticize each other's works." Debbie Joe, just for the record, and you already know this, I know I'm not saying anything new. We've got Geoplanet Jane here, she'll verify it. Scientists do that same thing.
Yeah.
That's why there is skepticism out there up front. So, yeah, this is our human process of learning, I would propose. So,
and we all know things. We all have different strengths.
Sure, absolutely. That's why we come together for YouTube videos like this. Yeah, baby. I actually have become functional in society now that I'm doing YouTubes, and we can thank Radio Free Mormon. I saw him on here earlier, so welcome, Radio Free Mormon. So anyway, and all the rest of you. So yeah, I'm just pointing that out. That's cool. Okay.
I think it's awesome. Okay, I can't skip that. Okay, my last one. Nick says, Vogel seems to be confusing evidence for absolute certainty. You can say there is sufficient evidence to be certain, but where there isn't absolute certainty, Vogel goes to no evidence. Okay, which is, so you have no positive evidence that Joseph Smith Sr. was ever a Mason. All you have is a 1 in 9 possibility, which not terribly good. This is only possible proof. This is possible proof, not probable proof, which there's a fallacy called the fallacy of possible proof, because historians are required to build a probable case. You need probable. I say there is more reason to doubt that Joseph Smith in Canandaigua is our Joseph Smith than to believe that it is. I have 8 reasons. They have 1. Yet you state that he was without. You state this without the qualifications which I just read. All right. So if everybody's ready, I'll move on to page 40 of their book.
Well, thank you for taking a few minutes opening up to at least discuss some of the comments so that we know that you're not just ignoring them. You're not trying to talk in the dark. You are cognizant of the we know there's going to be differences here, and that's fine, because there never has been very much agreement and similarities with this subject of Freemasonry and Mormonism ever in the first place. So no, this is wonderful.
I don't think we've known as much as we know now about the subject, actually.
I agree. Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose.
We have the advantage of having, who was it, Barbara Tuchman or one of the great American historians, say we have the advantage of hindsight for 2 centuries. Yeah, I think it was Barbara Tuchman in her book. We've had 2 centuries of existence that we have a historical consciousness, a historical context and consciousness that there's no way anybody in Joseph Smith's day could have possibly have had. So there's always, that's the fun of history. That's why I majored in history. I didn't get as far as you did. I got my BS, but and it didn't stand for Bachelor of Science the way I did it. So nice little personal dig there. Just self-effacing BS. That's what it is. All right, let's move on. Yes.
So on page 40, I'll read a little bit.
Method infinite.
Yeah.
All right.
Second paragraph down. It starts Joseph Smith Sr., but I'm going to start in a paean or anthem to Masonic legend. The elder Smith prophesied that his son would bring forth a book telling the account of the antediluvians who, at the approach of the great flood, had deposited their substance in large and spacious underground chambers. This later account, which foretells the coming forth of the Book of Mormon, was doubtless influenced by later events, but its connection with Masonic lore is further evidence that local residents viewed Father Smith as having promoted his son as a Masonic restorer. Now, in the footnote, they have Fawn Brody, but it's actually from the Palmyra Reflector for the 14th of February, 1831, which you can read in Early Mormon Documents, Volume 2, which is online at archive.org. All 5 volumes are, even the 8-volume series.
Wait. Hold on. You just said something. You're saying all 5 of your Mormonism early documents is online available. Yeah. Where was that at? Archive.org?
Yeah, archive.org. And there's like signature books put it online. Also Smith Pettit. And the 8-volume series on the history of the church is also there for free. How's that?
Okay, hold on one more time, cowboy. Sorry, I'm going to put this up as a banner because that is excellent, because I can't find them in print now, especially volume 1, like you were telling me a month or 2 ago. That's just not available. So this is big stuff. So, and then your 8-volume history of the church is also available on archive.
And all sorts of odd signature book publications are there for free. Archive.org is a great place to go to find old books and all sorts of things that you can Google is only showing you snippets of. So anyway.
Oh, thank you for telling us that. That's important. I'm going to show that. Archive.org, you guys. Yeah, because the early Mormon I call it early Mormon documents. I'm sorry. Is that what? It's not quite the right title, but
that's it.
What do we do? Just look up your name on archive.org, Dan Vogel. Yeah, and then all your books will. Yeah, this is really important because some really good historical books are very difficult to find, even on Amazon. So this is a huge hint. We can do a lot of our own research. So take advantage of this, you guys. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you letting me do that.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So that's a public service, I guess.
Hey, Cheryl just says your early Mormon documents is an invaluable resource. I'm going to leave this up for a few more minutes, but she's saying she has them all, and she very, very much thanks you and enjoys that.
Thank you.
So that's awesome. Yeah, she cited it liberally in their book, and they did. I can vouch for that. So, all right, okay, good. So we're on a roll here.
So in this 1831 reference to, it's actually Abner Cole, who is the editor of the Palmyra Reflector that's being printed on the same press as
Oh,
the
hey, is this our first slide? Pretty close, huh?
Oh, yes. 40
Just,
page 40.
just call. Just
I
say
already
it.
read it. We're
Read it
late.
out loud. The backyard professor is sharp. Whatever. Okay, here's what we're
I'm
talking
asleep
about.
at the wheel too. Okay, so yeah, that's the quote I just read, and
Excellent.
or this is actually the whole. This is the actual quote. So the elder Smith declared that his son Joe had seen a spirit, which he then described as a little old man with a long beard, and was informed that he, Joe, under certain circumstances, eventually should obtain great treasures, and that in due time he, the spirit, would furnish him, Joe, with a book, which would give an account of the ancient inhabitants or antediluvians of this country, and where they had deposited their substance, consisting of costly furniture, etc., at the approach of the great deluge, which had ever since that time remained secure in his, the Spirit's charge, in large and spacious chambers in sundry places in this vicinity. So,
1831. Quite a description of the old spirit, huh?
Yeah, and he got this from the elders.
Fun stuff.
Well, he got this before the book was even taken out of the hill. So this is pre 1837. 27.
Yeah.
Pre 1827. Okay. And we have here in pre 1827, Joseph Smith Sr. being described, or from this, the inhabitants of Palmyra are to conclude that Father Smith promoted his son as a Masonic restorer, just because they're mentioning chambers in the earth, and it's some kind of allusion to the Royal Archmason legend of Enoch in the chamber, and the 8 chambers going down to the triangle of the golden triangle. So
I'm looking to see, you know what? I erased all those, darn it. I had some overlays of those, but I got rid of them. Sorry. Yeah, we showed that chambered Enoch deal last time. You guys will have to watch the previous one to see what he's talking about if you didn't see it, but it's a 9-chambered vault Enoch in the legend. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
So we're to take this just because he's talking about a chamber in the earth and having gold and furniture. Well, Cole's claim that Joseph Smith anticipated the discovery of a book containing the locations of ancient treasures is supported by Parley Chase, who reported that when Smith first told of getting the book of plates, he said it would tell him how to get hidden treasures in the earth. So it's like a treasure map. It's going to locate the treasures that they hid so they wouldn't get lost. Cole's mention of costly furniture is especially intriguing in light of his ownership of the hill in Manchester, Lot 2, prior to Joseph Sr. digging a tunnel in the hill. Joseph Jr., according to Lorenzo Saunders, could see in his stone a man sitting in a gold chair. Sylvia Walker apparently described the same cave, said that Smith reportedly claimed to receive a revelation to dig 40 feet into the hill, where he would find a cave that contained gold furniture, chairs, and a table. So this is, of course, different than the gold plates, because it's actually prior to getting the gold plates. It's in October 1825, or before October 1825, is when Joseph Smith Sr. was digging in that Manchester Hill on the Lorenzo Saunders family's property. It's called Miners Hill later in Palmyra history.
Right.
And Joseph Smith Sr. dug a tunnel into the hill looking for this gold furniture.
Joseph Sr. dug the tunnel in the hill.
Yeah, and the hill's been uncovered. You can go online.
This is the Hill Cumorah.
No,
no,
it's called Miners Hill.
Miners Hill. I'm with you.
It's about the same place in Manchester, where their Manchester house was, and you go over the hill and across the street, and then you get to the Chase property right there, and then you go down probably less than a mile, and there's a Miners Road. It's called Miners Road, and there's a hill there, and Kearns, K.C. Kearns, and a friend of his, from my description of the place, I took a photograph of the place in the hill that where the cave was caved in, washed over or whatever. It had been reopened about 1930s. Comer, the guy that owned the property then, was Andrew Comer, and he opened it, and then it got closed again. And every time it gets closed, it gets shorter and shorter because it washes down. But K.C. Kearns and his friend got permission from the owner to dig it, and you can go online and see photographs of this tunnel. And I have in some of my videos. I put these pictures in some of my videos.
Yeah, you're still working on your which video are you working on right now? The second one still?
On Book of Mormon and Masonry, apologetic responses, trying to say it's not Masonic, it's not anti-Masonic. The Book of Mormon is not anti-Masonic.
Okay. So you didn't read that second slide, did you?
Not yet.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
you let me know.
Okay. 41.
You made these slides and they're awesome. So
okay, so my comment on that hill thing and reading into it, the Enoch legend, just because it mentions chambers and people hiding treasures before the flood, to keep them from the flood. It's sort of like the Enoch legend, also sort of like Josephus, and his discussion of Enoch. And there has to be some rationale for why the ancients are hiding their golden furniture and things. So there could be just a natural explanation arise about what the ancients in America did and why why are there treasures, and Joseph Smith as a treasure digger, told many different kinds of stories about treasures and why the treasures are there and who dug them and who killed who and threw their body in with the treasure. There was 2 Indians, and it was,
I want to find that captive kid's treasure. Yeah.
So, who knows how the story got to be told, but we know the book didn't, when it came out, wasn't about pre-flood times, in America. But so I don't see that as any clear evidence about Enoch and his plate.
Okay.
On the next page, 41, we have a quote of Lucy Smith. Said that Josiah Stoll came for Joseph on account of having heard that he possessed certain keys by which he could discern things invisible to the natural eye. So the word keys, Joseph Smith calling his treasure stone, seeing stone, a key, triggers a response from these authors that the suggestion of certain keys is an important piece of information as to Stoll's motivations to come and hire Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
The idea of keys by which certain hidden information could be discerned was important within Freemasonry, particularly in the Royal Arch rituals. Notably, later editors of Lucy Smith's record unfortunately substituted means for keys in published versions of her memoirs, thus obscuring the Masonic connotations of Lucy's words. But are they Masonic connotations just because she calls it a key? So later in Lucy's history, she says that Joseph noticed her anxiety because he didn't bring the plates home and said to her, "Do not be uneasy, mother. All is right. See here, I have got a key." Speaking of the spectacles. Revelation to Oliver Oh, yeah. So,
There it is.
we're a little behind on our slides.
It's all good. You tell me when the next slide is. We
I
are
have to do this.
coordinated, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's important to have that key. And the only reason I knew this is because I posted it too early.
So now behold, I give unto you and also unto my servant Joseph the keys of this gift, which shall bring to light this ministry. And the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. This is a revelation to Abrac. And the keys again refers to translating, the gift of translating with the stone or stones. So keys, not necessarily, to me, it shows that they're trying to a little too hard with such a vague reference to link it with Masonry. Okay. That's my takeaway from it. Right. So 43A, we should show. We're going to talk about the faculty of Abrac right now. Lucy Smith said, "Let not the reader suppose we stopped our labor and went at trying to win the faculty of Abrac, drawing magic circles or soothsaying, to the neglect of all kinds of business." Okay, that's Early Mormon Documents, Volume 1, page 285, if you want to look that up. So
nice. And you now have that power, all of my audience. You have the power. Use the Google net, Luke.
So Lucy was responding to accusations that her family was lazy and wasted their time hunting for buried treasure. Of course, she's well aware of the Hurlbut affidavits and E.D. Howe's book and other places. Much discussion has focused on Lucy's use of the phrase "winning the faculty of Abrac." The authors note that while Abrac is short for abracadabra, and actually it's the 7th line down, the magic 7 line down, it relates to an amulet or charm to promote good health. The phrase "winning the faculty of Abrac" seems to have originated in a Masonic related document.
Now, are you reading the Method Infinite, or are you reading out of Quinn? Where are you getting this? Early Mormon Documents?
I'm just reading my notes.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm not.
These are quick notes I've jotted down.
Yeah. Because I know Quinn in his Early Mormonism and Magic Worldview talks about the Abrac issue also. So, yeah.
Yeah, because it's really a magic phrase. Abrac is a magic.
There's no question that.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't it interesting how being raised in Mormonism, we were never told this in seminary, that Lucy Mack Smith herself had been discussing this? I mean, we heard all those wonderful faith promoting stories from Lucy Mack Smith being such a wonderful mother to the prophet and raising him to be the spiritual giant that he was. I mean, you've heard all the fluff and pap and pablum, but never once did I hear about this until I read D. Michael Quinn. That's just astonishing. I was well into adulthood, past age 11 by the time I read Quinn, and I just blown away. You know, it's quite fascinating how evidence will change the historical context of everything we study. So I just had to throw that in there. You know, it makes me sound intelligent. So carry on, carry on. You're the intelligent one here.
No, I'm interested in how you view certain things.
Yeah, it's fantastically. I will never forget reading Early Mormonism and the Magic Worldview by Quinn.
Yeah.
I vibrated. I bounced off the walls. I could not think for a month. I was so blown away. I instantly turned around after the month of recovering from my total culture shock, and I reread it again, and then I began sharing it with people. And of course, I got yelled at, but
That's the old version.
this is the old version. I also have a second edition back here somewhere, the one
Yeah.
where he responds
So,
to Hamblin and Peterson and those guys. But yeah, I kept the old edition. Absolutely. So,
I remember before the book came out, Mike Quinn giving these lectures at Mormon History Association meeting in the Hotel Utah where we used to meet. And it was like electrifying, you know, it's just like we're just hearing this stuff, learning this stuff for the first time. It was just a brand new world.
yeah, brand new world. That's a good description. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the originating document that I had mentioned earlier here is an anonymous 1753 London publication in the Gentleman's Magazine of a claimed 15th century document known as the Leland Manuscript, which contained an interview of King Henry VI that mentioned the Masons concealing occult practices. A copy of the king's interview was claimed to have been discovered in the desk of English metaphysician John Locke after his death. It consists of 12 question and answers with notes by Locke, supposedly by Locke. So the next slide, B, 43B. Yeah, a Leland manuscript. This is what it
Yeah,
said.
the Gentleman's Magazine, even. Why do we not have a Gentleman's Magazine today? I ask.
No more gentlemen.
Ooh, ouch. Good argument, though.
Anyway, to the question, what do the Masons conceal? The answer was given by the king. They concealeth the art of finding new arts. They concealeth the art of keeping secrets, the art of wonder working, which is miracles, and foresaying things to come, like prophecy. The art of changes, probably alchemy. The way of winning, the faculty of Abrac.
Oh, don't you love the spelling on that?
Yeah, man, there's too many Y's.
Man.
Too many
Look at
Y's.
that
It's
word.
kind of hard to read, huh? So
You did fabulous. I need a Urim and Thummim to translate this. Wow.
too bad I don't have the accent to go with it.
You know
but
what? It'd be fun to be in a spelling bee. And if someone asks you to spell winning, spell it WINNYNGE. And if they say, no, that's wrong, say, oh, the hell it is. I've got the reference. Sorry, I'm taken away from the seriousness. But hey, that is,
So
that is quite fascinating to see. Isn't this half the fun of looking at actual historical documents, man? Look at that.
Well, this is quoted out of William Hutchinson's The Spirit of Masonry, 1775, which the authors do use all that spelling.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's the way it appears. And the phrase winning the faculty of Abrac, I hear, is a Gaelic idiom instead of acquiring the faculty of Abrac.
Really?
So that's just a little thing.
That's interesting.
So 43C.
Is this the next one?
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm just about there, right there. that the one you're reading?
These authors neglected to mention that the Leland manuscript is widely considered an 18th century forgery, a pious fraud. This is Albert Mackey, a leading scholar, early scholar of Masonry. It is, in fact, one of those pious frauds intended to strengthen the claim of the order to a great antiquity and to connect it with mystical schools of the ancients.
How interesting. So it's a pious fraud.
So Claire Barris here, I have his article. Claire Barris published an article in the Journal of Mormon History, The Leland Manuscript Forgery and the Faculty of Abrac, in 2021. So it's fairly recent.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Cheryl, though, said in a Facebook conversation with Barris, Barris wasn't cited in our book because this part was written long before Claire had done any work on it. Remember, this book has been in production for decades, and because the information we include is not dependent on Claire's work, and it does diverge slightly as well. I believe this was a mistake. Barris's article was quite pertinent to their discussion. While it seems the Leland forgery consists of the earliest use of the phrase winning the faculty of Abrac in Lucy's time, as Barris points out, the phrase appeared in both Masonic and anti-Masonic sources. Masonic sources mostly quoted the Leland manuscript without commenting, other than to note that Locke was in the dark concerning its meaning. Anti-Masons, however, referred to the phrase to link Masonry with ancient mystery cults, and thus to the occult, witchcraft, and Satan.
Mm-hmm.
So the next slide.
Wake up, Carrie.
The Masons had the way of winning the faculty of Abrac. This is an anti-Mason speaking, by the way.
So it's in the Republic and then
1825.
Okay.
Yeah, 1825.
Okay.
He said that this is an example of how anti-Masons looked at this winning the faculty of Abrac, by which I can define nothing but witchcraft or devil dealing, for we are told that the Masons were masters of the then so much dreaded occult arts, or what was called the black art. Besides,
art rumors fun.
Besides, such a document was enough to call down the thunders of the church upon these supposed sorcerers, and we find that they were persecuted by the Bishop of Winchester, which is a matter of course if such notions were entertained of Masons or such professions made by them as this document imports. So the anti-Masons saw it as proof that the Mason rites came out of the mystery cults, which kind of gives you a hint of why people like George Oliver wanted to make a different lineage for Masonry.
Yeah. And then everybody was labeling everything else that they didn't like black magic and occult and witchcraft and all that. That's kind of fun.
This forgery fooled a lot of people, and
in that day,
so they thought, okay, the Masonry. This is proof that Masonry came back from an earlier period and was connected with the occult, just as they thought. So the next one, 43E, Barris shows that the closest parallel to Lucy's phraseology isn't the Leland manuscript or Masonic sources, but rather Henry Dana Ward's 1828 Freemasonry, its pretensions exposed in faithful extracts of its standard authors, which sheds light on how Masonic publications of the Leland manuscript were being perceived. He poked fun at the inability of Freemasonry's, this is Ward, poked fun at the inability of Freemasonry's central character to save himself through the magic mentioned in the Leland manuscript. Ward wondered why Hiram Abiff, the master of the art of foresaying, did not foresee his danger. The master of the art of wonder working did not even draw a magic circle. The master of the way of winning, the faculty of Abrac, did not utter a syllable of magic, did not spit one mouthful of fire, did not make the slightest attempt to conjure a spirit to his rescue. So you hear the book was also advertised in the Wayne Sentinel, Ward's book, on the 4th of September, 1829. Later, the same book, Ward quotes the Leland manuscript and adds, the faculty of Abrac, in parentheses, adds magic. On page 153, he again follows the phrase faculty of Abrac with an abbreviation, abracadabra, a magical word. He explains Abrac as an abbreviation of abracadabra,
Of abracadabra,
a magical word.
As
so,
a magic.
So it's connected to magic, even though the Masons are inventing this phrase, faculty of Abrac. It might have been around, but it seems like in the subject that we're discussing, this is the origin of the phrase.
Interesting.
Now the next slide. Oh, here, back to where you were.
Okay.
So you can see here that the Leland manuscript and Lucy's being compared, and it doesn't have all the phrases, but the Ward has all three phrases that Lucy uses. Okay, so the next one.
Yeah, so you were saying earlier when the faculty of Abrac is a Gaelic.
Yeah, winning is the word.
Winning.
Acquiring.
So that's a real interesting way that Lucy was kind of tied into the acculturation of it, huh? Yeah.
She heard the phrase. She's using the phrase.
Yeah.
But we'll see why she's using the phrase. She's not really referring to Masonry at all. Okay, so the next one, Barris, his article is very important. This is Barris. Ward includes each of the forms of the magic listed by Lucy Smith. There are three magic terms, even though the Masons use faculty Abrac, which is a magic term. But no, they didn't talk about it. They only quoted the Leland manuscript. Additionally, he includes conjuring and magic words that are also.
Do we know what the magic words were, Dan? Do we know what those magic words are? You said something about three magic words, right?
Or
do we? I don't know.
He includes conjuring and magic words that are also tied to folk magic and part of the Smith's magic relics like layman's, ceremonial dagger, and talisman. Ward equates Abrac with magic. No. I didn't write it all out. So.
All right. It's all good.
I don't remember what exactly Claire is referring to here. But this is what he states, that Ward is talks about magic in addition to.
So there were not only words, but relics. Yeah.
Throughout his discussion, throughout his book, there's Ward knows about magic. Okay. A lot about magic. So
I'd like to get that Journal of Mormon history article and read
yeah,
it. Fresh
well,
off the press. That's the best kind, huh?
yeah, it's which way? It's this one.
Okay, we've got some confusion. Let's straighten this out while we can. Oh yeah, Mormon history, the Journal of Mormon history.
Oh, sorry.
What's your point here? Are you saying that Lucy's use of the faculty of Abrac was a magic term rather than a Masonic term?
Yes,
Is Daryl's question.
and it
So
got,
you think
you'll see as my
do you
discussion
think
progresses.
do you think it is exclusively a magic as opposed to
No,
a Masonic magic or Mason? Or am I confusing the issue? Won't be the first time.
it's describing magic. It's not describing anything the Masons were doing.
Okay, that's what we wanted to know.
Masons aren't running around trying to win the faculty of Abrac.
The Masons aren't, but Lucy Smith was. Right?
Yeah, we'll find out why.
Oh, okay. All right.
As we go. So Claire Barris again on the next one.
Let's keep trucking here and see what the next revelation shows us.
Yeah. The mid-18th century forged Leland manuscript successfully implanted the concept of secretive magical practices into Masonic ideology. Included was the Masonic unique phrase, winning the faculty of Abrac, also quoted by Lucy Smith.
Okay.
Henry Dana Ward's 1828 anti-Masonic treatment reflects how the Leland manuscript concepts had been expanded to include the American magic culture of the 1820s, a quasi-Masonic magic blend into which the Smiths fit. Magic circles are not mentioned in the Masonic sources, but are by Ward's 1820s overlay of esoteric folk culture onto the Leland forgery influenced Freemasonry. Lucy Smith may be reflecting the common vernacular of the treasure-seeking folk magic realm from which Ward was also drawing. And he could also be referring to specific family magic practices and perceptions, with Joseph Smith as a soothsayer, seer, turning prophet, using conjuring instructions from the magus that invoke Abrac when attempting to control spirits within the magic circle. So this is Barris's conclusion, Barris's summary.
In that article, right?
So what he's alluding to is that it's part of the vocabulary, the vernacular of the time, without knowing the origin of the phrase even. Okay, so Lucy was responding to the accusations that her family was lazy. Money digging was considered an idle pastime. Despite the phrasing, all three accusations deal with folk magic, not masonry. No one accused the Smiths of wasting time with masonry. Lucy was being ironic and sarcastic, mocking her accusers with exaggerated language, not language she would use to describe what she did. She would not use the term soothsaying to describe what her family did. Now, this is an article by Samuel Brown, Reconsidering Lucy Mack Smith's Folk Magic Confession in the Mormon Historical Studies, Volume 13, Spring, Fall 2012. So, in Samuel Brown was it points out in this article that the phrase winning the faculty of Abrac was popularized by Masons and anti-Masons, but it was still associated with magic. The Masons weren't trying to win the faculty of Abrac, as I said. It had no part of their ritual. It was something that was attributed to them in a forgery. The only evidence the authors offer on page 45 of their book is to George F. Fort's 1881 book that tries to connect. Tries to make a possible argument or connection between Abrac and the lost name. This leads our authors to speculate about a passage in the Mark Mason decree to Revelations 2:17 about the white stone and the new name, then to Joseph Smith's interpretation about the stone being a Urim and Thummim and the new name being the key word, which they connect to the lost word of Masonry. In a Facebook exchange, Barris said, because of the date of the source, 1881, used in the book to tie the faculty of Abrac to trying to discerning the ineffable word, I omitted that reference in his article. I thought the date of that reference was too late to use to indicate how the term was understood by Masons in the 1820s, or by anybody, really. Bear seems to be the more careful historian. So the next slide. So the conclusion is that Lucy's statement can't be used to establish that the Smiths mixed esotericism, folk magic, and masonry in their money-digging activities, or that they associated such activities with Enoch, and that the effort to find the lost name of God. The connections and speculations that Masonic author George F. Fort made in 1881 using the Leland forgery are not relevant. They're irrelevant. So that's my conclusion, that it's a term, it's a pejorative type term that Lucy gave to mock her critics, like
the whole faculty of Abrac.
Yeah, she's saying we didn't waste our time going after the faculty of Abrac, drawing magic circles, or soothsaying. These are the words of the critics, not hers. And it could describe, in general terms, some people see it as a confession. Quinn saw it as a confession that the family indulged in this and that they were familiar with the faculty of Abrac. But she's speaking in 1845, and she's using terms that she could have since learned, like the faculty of Abrac, from that period of time.
Okay.
So the authors also say there's in an argument of silence. Notably, no evidence has been found that any member of the Smith family carried a version of the abracadabra parchment amulet. So that's an argument of silence, that they didn't. There's no proof that they knew about the abracadabra thing. They had no parchment, because they had 3 other parchments, but one of them's not the abracadabra one. So therefore, it only leads to one other conclusion. They think. Instead, they were likely to have understood the faculty of Abrac in light of esoteric writings of Freemasons, such as Albert Pike and George F. Fort. Well, both of these authors, the first one doesn't mention the faculty of Abrac in the quote that they give anyway, is 1871. But Fort is the one that tries to connect it, winning the faculty of Abrac, thus understood signifies the means by which the lost word may be recovered.
Okay. And you're saying George Fort was 1881?
1881. And that's why Barris says, Barris says he knew about it, but he didn't use it because it was too far after the Smiths.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I see your point. That's on page 45 and 46 of the book.
Yes.
Where those references to Albert Pike and George F. Fort are. Yeah.
Okay. But it's too much to hang on a phrase, too much weight for this small phrase that could be in the vernacular the time for magic, to make use it as evidence that way back in when they're money digging, that was part of their belief system, and it wasn't just understood as magic, or this amulet. It was connected to Enoch, and trying to discover the lost name that never gets discovered,
Right. Yeah.
or lost again. Seems a little convenient. The chapter ends with speculations about Freemasonry saturating the collective unconscious of the nation, and men intuitively feeling that something had been lost. So this is all tapping into, the collective unconscious.
Where are you reading that at, Dan? 47?
47, yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Down at the bottom.
It's all good. Okay, yeah, I see what you're doing. Okay, I see where you're at.
Freemasonry's mythical history saturated the collective unconscious of the nation.
Yeah.
It provided a sense of continuity with the past, appealing to the primitivist yearnings of many men who intuitively felt that something, perhaps spiritual, political, or personal innocence, had been lost. Masonry provided an allegorical background that spiritualized the physical act of treasure seeking, prevalent in the communities in which the Smiths lived. Digging in the earth represented an exteriorization of the desire to recover something buried deep within. Like many men in ages of uncertainty, Joseph Smith Sr. certainly felt the sting of that which was lost, and sought to restore it through the Masonic working of the faculty of Abrac. I think that's
so your take on this is they're reading too much into it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
All right. So that ends this chapter. And so we go to chapter 3. And I think
are your slides, did I miss some of your slides, or are those for the
it's 52, page 52.
Oh, okay. So it's in chapter 3. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so.
And it's so this chapter is on Morgan and his abduction and assumed murder, and not much to say here, except I have some complaint about the use of 2 sources in this chapter that they might think about revising. So on page 52 is a quote from a book. Let's see, 1884 book, but it's about John Whitney, who one of the principal conspirators in the Morgan disappearance and relative of prominent early Mormon Newell K. Whitney. Reported in later years that Morgan had been a halfway convert of Joe Smith, the Mormon, and had learned from him to see visions and dream dreams. Wow. Well, first, I don't understand why this doesn't fit really with their thesis too much, because we have Morgan's an anti-Mason, And so I don't know exactly what he would be a convert of or what would bring them together, but that's the implication, that Morgan and Joseph Smith met each other. And this would be a unique source. So you have to be wary, first of all, a source without any other support.
Okay.
So if Morgan spent the spring of 1826 in Ontario County, he may have had a rare opportunity to become acquainted with Joseph Smith Jr. Why? In 1826, Joseph Smith is, a treasure digger, and
Right.
so what would bring them together? But I don't think they ever came together, and I don't even think this source is saying that, because there's a larger context to this source that is kind of left out of the story.
And you're going to give us that context?
Yeah, so show the slide here.
Okay, let's go
52.
to this slide.
Oh, here we go.
Is that the wrong one?
Oh, yeah, it's okay. So this is Morgan's abduction. Pretty cool.
It is. I wonder who took that picture.
And Joseph Smith and Morgan meeting is in this book, Rob Morris, William Morgan, or Political Anti-Masonry, Its Rise, Growth, and Decadence, 1883, page 196, based on Morris's notes of his conversation with John Whitney in 1858 to 59, somewhere in there, about the abduction of Morgan. So from 1858, a conversation note, he kept notes, and then he published it in 1883. In describing moving Morgan around in September 1826, Whitney reportedly said, see if there's another slide.
Okay.
What's the next slide? I forget.
Rob Morris, William Morgan, or political.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Is that the quote that you just read?
That's the quote I need. During the day, it was reported to us at Lewiston that Morgan had gone into theatricals and was shouting and alarming the people in the vicinity. It was a common thing with the fellow, as the people of Batavia used to testify. He had delirium tremens, which is from drinking or withdrawal.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
He couldn't endure to be left alone. His eyes hurt him terribly. He saw snakes in the apartment. And then the comment, he had been a halfway convert of Joe Smith, the Mormon, and had learned from him to see visions and dream dreams.
And dream dreams. Interesting. Yeah.
This is one of those unique outlier sources. No source of information, personal or otherwise, is given for this supposed pre-1826 meeting of Smith and the anti-Masonic Morgan. It would therefore be a mistake to place too much weight on it. Nevertheless, I think our authors have misread it. Morgan's hallucinations were apparently related to his alcohol withdrawal. And the comment about learning how to have visions and dream dreams from Joseph Smith seems more humorous than serious. What was Morgan, the anti-Mason, supposed to be a convert of? So I think this is just a humorous statement. They know about, he's seeing snakes in his apartment. And so the guy makes this sarcastic remark.
Yeah, the way I'm seeing your interpretation of this, it appears to me that this is kind of a kill two birds with one stone thing. He gets to clobber Morgan as well as Joseph Smith here.
Yeah. Well, they're familiar with Joseph Smith, the nearby Joseph Smith, the prophet.
The nearby clown digging treasure. Yeah.
Yeah, and claiming to see visions and getting gold plates. And so he's a halfway convert of Joseph Smith. He
So now, what was? I'm
Joseph
sorry.
giving lessons on visions or something. I mean,
I
come
might have
on.
missed. I might have missed your reference. This. Okay, you're saying this Rob Morris in 1883. Is that when this was written?
No, it's supposedly written from notes, and it's a longer account that John Whitney gave to Morris around 1858 or 59. They spoke to each other, and then he kept notes, supposedly, and then put the notes together in this 1884 book. 84?
Yeah.
So I just see it as one of those humorous statements that has no real history behind it or anything.
Okay.
But
Other than the fact that he made it, and it's in his his book.
So I don't see any need to take it seriously.
Okay.
Okay, and the next one is dealing with Lucinda Morgan, Morgan's widow. And this is on page 62 to 63. Oh, I do have a slide for that.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Good okay, so the authors quote Lucinda Morgan's statement when she's a widow at this time, and they're offering to help her and as a charity group. And towards the end of the letter, she says she wants future in the total. She wants the total eradication of false Freemasonry, and the authors interpret this as her words seem indicative of a belief in spurious Masonry, which had become corrupted and needed to be eradicated, while leaving open the possibility of a true and restored form of the craft. And I don't see her saying that at all. She's saying Freemasonry is false. This is the widow of an anti-Mason. And Morgan was total anti-Mason. It's like saying the total eradication of evil Freemasonry. She's just saying Freemasonry is false, a false system. She wants the eradication of it. But she does also say in the letter, she calls Masonry a merciless and cruel institution. She's talking about the whole institution. She's not making a distinction between spurious and pure Masonry. No one used it like that, especially an anti-Mason. Never distinguished pure and spurious. It's George Oliver and the like, referring to the mystery cults of the idolatrous heathen nations as being off branches, becoming spurious forms of Masonry, not the institution in the 1820s and 30s or 40s being divided somehow, some way between true and spurious Masons. And in the book, they explain that they're taking the theory of spurious and pure Masonry and applying it in a unique way to the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
So there's no to me, to describe the widow of the anti-Mason martyr as believing in true and spurious Masonry just doesn't make any sense.
Interesting. Yeah. I see how you're arriving at your conclusion. Yeah. The total eradication of false Freemasonry. I mean, it killed her husband, and then it's a merciless and cruel institution. And she is talking about the institution. So yeah, I see how you.
There's no implication here. They're reading into this source what they need to see to make it seem like spurious Masonry is being discussed by anti-Masons.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, very good.
So, should we stop there, or should we continue?
Yeah, we've gone. You've covered a lot of really interesting ground. I have really enjoyed this. I like how you're going through the book and sharing other extra historical sources, or getting to the historical sources that the authors use, and putting it on screen for us so that we can kind of follow along and keep track, because your depth in the history is so really awesome that it's fun for us to be able to follow along with your view and how the sources work and all that. So yeah, this has been really awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge. This is spectacular. Now we've kind of talked behind the scenes, and you've mentioned that uh, we want next to approach the first vision, and you also want to discuss the Book of Mormon ideas that the authors Bruno and Latursky and Swick discuss in their book. And so we probably got two more, potentially three more meets. I do have an announcement I'd like to make to my audience. However, next weekend, I'm going to have Tim Rathbone. Yes, the Tim Rathbone in our chat, our beloved Tim Rathbone, on the show next week at this time. And he's got a lot of inside history and methodology of the church history department at BYU in Salt Lake that we will talk about next week. And then the Sunday after next week, we will bring back Dan, and we will. You want to do the first vision next time, Dan? Is that's
First
the
vision,
one?
at least? Yeah, I'm mostly interested in getting up to the coming forth of the book, the first vision, the coming forth of the Book of Mormon, and the contents of the Book of Mormon.
So that'd be chapters 5 and 6 in the book for those of you who have it, and you can read ahead of time. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Yeah, so we will do that. And in the meantime, let me also remind you that backyardprofessor.org has new podcasts available for your listening. And let's see, I'm going to be on again. Next Saturday, I might be out there videoing some of the pleasant mountains around me, and then making another nature video. I do have a new video up on the program, and I had my discussion of Sunday school this morning about the church leadership and the problem with the methodology of the church is that they are not changing it. I mean, after a while, you have to say, holy cow, man, you got to do something different, but they keep doing the same thing. And actually, I'm really glad to have Dan here, because his high volumes. Now, I'm going to gossip a little bit here. I honestly can't remember who it was that was talking to me. It was one of the prominent Mormon apologists. This was quite a while ago. And he said, the history department at BYU is really not happy that Dan Vogel scooped him with this kind of a powerhouse historical source of these 5 books on the early Mormonism and the documents related to early Mormonism. And that was actually the swift kick in the butt that Vogel gave the history department to tell the brethren, almost as it were, we don't give a flying flip what you think. Our credibility, we must improve our sagging credibility. And this was the impetus for the Joseph Smith papers. I admit it's gossipy. I can't be sure of that, so take it with a grain of salt. But I have talked to others who say that series of books. So that's why I made such a big deal, Dan, about you letting us know it's at archive.org. And now we all have access to that source so that we can double and triple check any article or book on early Mormonism. And that is vital to do in these days. Unfortunately, because we do know the track record and we do recognize that the methodology has not necessarily changed all that much, even since producing the Joseph Smith papers, which is a magnificent leap forward. I give the church full credit for that. I'm not trying to scream sour grapes here. That's fabulous that they're doing that. The downside that I was shown this morning or talked about is the cost. The upside is they're absolutely fantastic books for a historian, if a historian can afford this. I can't afford every single book, so I'm kind of being picky and choosy, etc. But some of them are $100. That's way pricey. But so just saying, this is my way of saying thank you, Dan Vogel, for all of your continual contribution. I mean, for the last several decades, you are the historian's historian, and we greatly appreciate your time and efforts. So in the meantime, you guys, we're going to close out. Do you have any closing words you'd like to say, Dan?
Well, thanks for coming and listening. And I hope that I have served the historical community.
Yep. Very good. Very good. We will be back next week with Tim Rathbone on the hot seat. And then the week after, we will jump back on Dan Vogel. So in the meantime, remember, be good, do well, have fun, work hard, sleep well, make lots of friends, smile. It makes people wonder what you're up to. And we are going to skedaddle. We love y'all, but we got to go. It's been a blast.